Jake Reeves wiped the grease from his hands with a dirty rag as the massive starship touched down on landing pad 7. The ground shook beneath his boots, and dust clouds swirled around the repair bay. He had seen plenty of alien vessels in his 15 years working at Kepler Station, but this one made his jaw drop. The ship was enormous, easily 3 times the size of anything he had worked on before. Its hull gleamed with a strange metallic surface that seemed to shift colors in the light. Strange symbols covered its sides, glowing faintly with blue energy. Whatever race built this thing, they were far more advanced than humans. "Jake!" called out his supervisor, Marcus Webb, jogging across the landing pad. "You're up. They specifically requested our best mechanic." Jake raised an eyebrow. "They asked for me by name?" "Not by name, but they said they wanted the human who fixed the Zenthari cruiser last month. That was you, right?" Jake nodded, remembering the challenging repair job on the crystalline ship. The Zenthari had been impressed with his work, even though their technology was completely different from human engineering. He grabbed his toolbox and headed toward the alien vessel. As he approached, a section of the hull dissolved into thin air, creating an entrance. Jake hesitated for a moment, then stepped inside. The interior was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls pulsed with soft light, and the air hummed with energy. Everything seemed alive, as if the ship itself was a living creature. A tall figure emerged from the shadows ahead. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, with sleek silver armor that seemed fused to its body. Its face was hidden behind a helmet with glowing blue eyes. 4 arms extended from its torso, each ending in hands with long, graceful fingers. "You are the human mechanic," the alien said in perfect English, its voice carrying a strange, harmonic quality. "I am Guardian Zephyr 9 Alpha of the Covenant Fleet." Jake swallowed hard. He had heard whispers about the Covenant, an ancient race that protected the galaxy from threats beyond imagination. They rarely interacted with younger species like humans. "Yes, sir. Jake Reeves. What seems to be the problem?" Zephyr gestured with one of its arms toward the back of the ship. "My neural interface system has been damaged in battle. The connection between my consciousness and the ship's systems is unstable. If it fails completely, I will be unable to fulfill my duties as a guardian." As they walked deeper into the ship, Jake noticed scorch marks on the walls and sparking conduits. Whatever battle this guardian had been in, it was fierce. "Our medical technicians cannot repair the interface," Zephyr continued. "The technology is too integrated with organic components. We require someone with intuitive understanding of complex systems." They reached a large chamber at the heart of the ship. In the center stood a cylindrical pod filled with swirling blue liquid. Cables and tubes connected it to every surface of the room. But Jake could see the problem immediately. Several of the biomechanical connections were damaged, sparking with unstable energy. "This is incredible," Jake whispered, studying the intricate system. "It's like the ship and pilot are one organism." "Precisely. When I bond with my vessel, we become a single entity capable of incredible feats. But the interface must be perfect, or the connection will burn out both my mind and the ship's core consciousness." Jake set down his toolbox and began examining the damaged components. The technology was far beyond anything humans had developed, but the principles were similar to the neural implants he had worked on before. The connections needed to be precise, allowing information to flow without overwhelming the biological components. "I think I can fix this," Jake said, pulling out his tools. "But I'll need to work carefully. One wrong move and you could lose the connection permanently. I understand the risks. Proceed." Jake began the delicate work of repairing the biomechanical interfaces. His hands moved with practiced precision, reconnecting severed pathways and replacing damaged components with parts from his emergency kit. The alien technology seemed to respond to his touch, almost as if it recognized his intent. Hours passed as Jake worked. Zephyr stood motionless, watching every movement. Occasionally, the Guardian would offer advice about the energy flows or warn Jake about particularly sensitive components. Despite their different origins, Jake found himself working in harmony with the ancient alien. "There's something strange about these connection patterns," Jake said, pausing in his work. "They're not just carrying data. There's something else, like emotional resonance or instinct." "You are perceptive," Zephyr replied. "The ship does not just obey commands. It shares feelings, memories, even dreams. A guardian and their vessel become true partners." Jake continued his repairs, fascinated by the concept. Human technology was advancing rapidly, but nothing like this existed in their space. The idea of truly bonding with a machine, of becoming something greater than the sum of parts, was incredible. As he worked on the final connections, something unexpected happened. A surge of energy flowed through the repaired interface, and suddenly Jake felt a presence in his mind. Images flashed before his eyes, stars being born and dying, ancient battles against creatures of pure darkness, the vast loneliness of protecting a galaxy that rarely understood the sacrifice. "What was that?" Jake gasped, pulling his hands back from the interface. Zephyr's helmet tilted slightly. "The ship. It reached out to you. Most remarkable. In 3,000 years, I have never seen a vessel react to a non-guardian in such a way." "Is that normal?" "Nothing about this is normal, Jake Reeves." Jake hesitated, then reached out to complete the final connection. This time, the presence was stronger. He could feel the ship's gratitude, its relief at being whole again. More than that, he could sense its evaluation of him, as if it was measuring his worth. "The repairs are complete," Jake announced, stepping back from the interface pod. Zephyr approached the pod and placed one hand on its surface. Immediately, the chamber filled with brilliant blue light. The Guardian's armor began to glow, and Jake could feel the power flowing through the ship as pilot and vessel reconnected. "Perfect," Zephyr said, and Jake could hear satisfaction in the alien's voice. "The connection is stronger than it has been in decades. You have done something remarkable here." Jake packed up his tools, proud of the work, but still puzzled by the ship's strange reaction to him. "Just doing my job, though I have to admit this was the most interesting repair I've ever done." Zephyr turned to face him fully. "Jake Reeves, you have saved not just my ship, but potentially countless lives that I am sworn to protect. The Covenant does not forget such service. No payment necessary. It was an honor to work on something this advanced. Nevertheless, you will be compensated. But more than that." Zephyr paused, as if listening to something Jake couldn't hear. "My vessel wishes to make you an offer." "An offer?" "It has chosen you, Jake Reeves, something that has never happened before in recorded history. A guardian ship selecting someone who is not of the Covenant bloodline." Jake's heart raced. "I don't understand. Chosen for what?" "To become a guardian yourself. To bond with this ship and protect the galaxy from threats beyond imagination. It is not a decision to be made lightly." Jake stared at the glowing pod, feeling the ship's presence reaching out to him again. The offer was incredible, but also terrifying. He thought of his quiet life on Kepler Station, his routine work, his human colleagues and friends. "I need time to think about this," Jake said finally. "Of course. Great choices require careful consideration. I will remain here for 3 standard days. When you have decided, return to me." As Jake left the ship, his mind was spinning with possibilities. Behind him, he could feel the ancient vessel watching, waiting for his answer to a question that would change everything. Jake couldn't sleep that night. He tossed and turned in his small quarters aboard Kepler Station, his mind racing with images of the Guardian ship and Zephyr's incredible offer. Every time he closed his eyes, he could feel the presence of the vessel calling to him, like a whisper at the edge of consciousness. By morning, he had made no progress toward a decision. He went through his normal routine, checking repair schedules and organizing his tools, but his heart wasn't in it. His co-workers noticed his distraction immediately. "You look like you've seen a ghost," said Maria Santos, his fellow mechanic. "What happened on that Covenant ship yesterday?" Jake hesitated. How could he explain what had occurred without sounding crazy? "Just a complicated repair job. The technology was unlike anything I've ever worked with." "Must have been something special to keep you up all night thinking about it." Before Jake could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed in the corridors, and the intercom crackled to life. "All personnel to emergency stations. Unknown vessels approaching the system. This is not a drill." Jake and Maria rushed to the command center, where dozens of station personnel were gathered around the main display screen. What they saw made Jake's blood run cold. A massive fleet of dark ships was emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the system. Their hulls were black as void, and they moved with predatory grace toward Kepler Station. Jake had never seen anything like them, but somehow he knew they brought death. "What are those things?" whispered someone in the crowd. Station Commander Harrison's voice was grim. "Unknown design. They're not responding to any communications, and their energy signatures are off the charts." Jake watched in horror as the dark fleet spread out, surrounding the system. There had to be at least 50 ships, each one massive and bristling with weapons. Kepler Station's defenses were designed to handle pirates and small raiders, not a force like this. "Sir," called out the communications officer, "we're getting a transmission from the Covenant ship." "Put it through." Guardian Zephyr's harmonic voice filled the command center. "Kepler Station, this is Guardian Zephyr 9 Alpha. The approaching vessels belong to the Void Collective, an ancient enemy of all life. You must evacuate immediately." Commander Harrison stepped forward. "Guardian, this is Commander Harrison. We have over 10,000 people on this station. Our evacuation ships can't carry everyone, and they're not fast enough to escape that fleet." "I understand your situation, Commander. I will do what I can to delay them, but I am only one ship against many." Jake's heart pounded as he watched the dark fleet advance. He thought about the thousands of innocent people on the station, the families and workers who would die if those ships reached them. Then he thought about the Guardian vessel and its offer. Without another word, Jake turned and ran toward the docking bay. "Jake, where are you going?" Maria called after him. He didn't answer. His mind was made up. Jake reached landing pad 7 just as the first Void Collective ships entered weapons range. The Guardian vessel's hull was already glowing with energy as Zephyr prepared for battle. Jake sprinted up the ramp that materialized before him. He found Zephyr in the ship's command center, standing before a series of holographic displays showing the approaching enemy fleet. "Jake Reeves," Zephyr said without turning, "I sense you have made your decision. Those people on the station, they're going to die unless someone helps them. The Void Collective shows no mercy. They consume entire civilizations, leaving nothing but empty space behind. I will fight them, but the odds are not favorable." Jake stepped forward, feeling the ship's presence stronger than ever. The vessel seemed to pulse with anticipation, ready to bond with him. "Then we fight them together. I accept your ship's offer." Zephyr turned to face him, the blue lights in the Guardian's helmet flickering with what might have been surprise. "Are you certain? Once the bond is formed, there is no return to your previous life. You will become something between human and machine, dedicated to protecting life throughout the galaxy." "I'm certain." Zephyr nodded slowly, then approached the interface pod. Jake walked to the cylindrical chamber he had repaired the day before. The blue liquid inside swirled faster as he drew near, and he could feel the ship's excitement building. "Place your hands on the contact points," Zephyr instructed. "The ship will do the rest." Jake pressed his palms against the smooth metal surfaces. Immediately, energy coursed through his body, but this time it was different. Instead of brief images, he felt the full consciousness of the ship flowing into his mind. The sensation was overwhelming. Suddenly, Jake could feel every system in the vessel as if they were parts of his own body. He sensed the power flowing through the engines, the targeting systems focusing on the approaching enemy ships, the defensive shields crackling with energy. But more than that, he could feel the ship's memories and emotions. Centuries of battles, victories and defeats, the profound loneliness of space, and the fierce joy of protecting innocent life. The vessel had fought the Void Collective before, had seen their terrible hunger for destruction. "The bonding is complete," Zephyr announced. "Jake Reeves, you are now Guardian Jake 1 Prime. Your vessel has chosen the designation Defiant Spirit." Jake opened his eyes, and the world looked different. He could see energy patterns invisible to normal human sight, could feel the electromagnetic signatures of every ship in the system. The Defiant Spirit was no longer just a machine. It was part of him, and he was part of it. "I can feel them," Jake said in wonder. "The Void ships, they're not just machines either. There's something alive inside them, something hungry and cold." "The Void Collective corrupts whatever it touches," Zephyr explained. "They turn living beings into extensions of their hive mind, consuming their individuality and free will." Jake felt the Defiant Spirit's weapons powering up, responding to his emotions. "Then let's stop them." The two Guardian ships launched from Kepler Station just as the first Void vessels opened fire. The space around the station erupted in brilliant flashes of energy as defensive systems tried to hold back the assault. Jake had never piloted anything more complex than a repair shuttle, but with the Defiant Spirit bonded to his mind, he flew like he had been born for it. The ship responded to his thoughts, diving and weaving through the enemy fire with impossible grace. "Focus on the smaller ships first," Zephyr's voice came through their shared communication link. "The destroyer-class vessels coordinate their attacks. Remove them, and the fleet becomes less effective." Jake guided the Defiant Spirit into the midst of the Void formation. Enemy ships turned to target him, their dark hulls bristling with weapons, but he was already moving. The ship's consciousness merged with his human intuition, creating something neither alien technology nor human instinct could achieve alone. He opened fire with the Defiant Spirit's main weapons, beams of pure energy that cut through Void armor like it was paper. 3 enemy ships exploded in rapid succession, their destruction sending shockwaves through the enemy formation. But there were so many of them. For every ship Jake destroyed, 2 more took its place. The Void Collective seemed endless, and he could see more ships arriving from hyperspace. "Guardian Jake," came a transmission from Kepler Station. "The evacuation ships are launching, but they need more time. Can you hold them off?" Jake felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. Thousands of lives depended on him and Zephyr. He had been a simple mechanic just days ago, and now he held the fate of an entire system in his hands. "We'll hold them," Jake replied, diving his ship toward a cluster of Void cruisers. "Whatever it takes." The battle raged on, 2 Guardian ships against an armada of darkness. But Jake was beginning to understand something about the bond between Guardian and vessel. It wasn't just about sharing control. It was about becoming something greater, combining human creativity and determination with alien technology and wisdom. The Defiant Spirit seemed to grow stronger as the battle continued, feeding off Jake's resolve. Together, they fought with a fury that surprised even the ancient Void Collective. The space around Kepler Station had become a graveyard of twisted metal and energy. Jake's hands moved across the Defiant Spirit's control interfaces with fluid precision. The ship responding to his thoughts faster than conscious decision could follow. In the hours since the bonding, he had destroyed dozens of Void Collective ships, but their numbers seemed endless. Warning signals flashed across his enhanced vision as enemy fire peppered the Defiant Spirit's shields. Jake rolled the ship away from a massive blast, feeling the heat wash over the hull like a physical sensation. "Guardian Jake," Zephyr's voice crackled through the communication link, strained with exhaustion. "My vessel's power reserves are at 30%. We cannot maintain this pace much longer." Jake checked his own ship's status through their neural link. The Defiant Spirit was holding up better, but even its advanced systems were being pushed to their limits. Worse, sensors showed at least 20 more void ships emerging from hyperspace. "How many evacuation ships have made it out?" Jake asked, destroying another enemy cruiser with a precisely aimed shot. 70% of the civilian population has escaped," came the reply from Kepler Station's command center. "But the remaining ships are having trouble with their engines. They need at least another hour." An hour. Jake felt the weight of that timeline pressing down on him. At their current rate of fighting, both Guardian ships would be destroyed or disabled long before then. That's when Jake noticed something strange in the Void Collective's formation. The enemy ships weren't just randomly attacking. They were moving in complex patterns as if guided by a single intelligence. Through the Defiant Spirit's enhanced sensors, he could detect powerful energy signals coming from the largest ship at the center of their fleet. "Zephyr," Jake called out, "I think their command ship is controlling the entire fleet. Look at those energy patterns." There was a pause as Zephyr analyzed Jake's data. "Remarkable. You are correct. The Void Collective uses a distributed consciousness system, but there is always a primary node. If we could destroy that ship, the rest of the fleet would lose coordination," Jake finished. "But that thing is huge, and it's surrounded by at least 30 other ships." "It would be a suicide mission," Zephyr agreed. "No Guardian has ever successfully penetrated so deep into a void formation and survived." Jake studied the enemy fleet through the Defiant Spirit sensors. The command ship was massive, easily 10 times the size of a normal cruiser. Its hull bristled with weapons and defensive systems. Getting close enough to destroy it would mean flying through a gauntlet of enemy fire that would tear apart any normal ship. But Jake was beginning to understand that the Defiant Spirit was far from normal. During the battle, he had felt the ship changing, adapting, growing stronger through their bond. The vessel seemed to feed off his human determination and creativity, while he gained access to technology and capabilities beyond anything his species had dreamed of. "I have an idea," Jake said, feeling a plan forming in his mind. "But I'll need your help to make it work." "Speak freely, Guardian Jake. What if we combined our ship's power? Link our neural networks together so both vessels can share their energy and capabilities?" Silence filled the communication channel for several seconds. When Zephyr spoke again, there was something like awe in the Guardian's harmonic voice. "Such a technique is theoretical only. It has never been attempted. The neural feedback could destroy both pilots, and if the connection fails during combat..." "We'd both be dead anyway if we keep fighting like this," Jake pointed out. "At least this gives us a chance." Another pause. "Very well. I will attempt to establish a neural bridge between our vessels. Prepare yourself. The sensation will be unlike anything you have experienced." Jake took a deep breath and opened his mind completely to the Defiant Spirit's consciousness. The ship responded eagerly, its awareness expanding to encompass not just its own systems, but reaching out toward Zephyr's vessel. The moment the connection formed, Jake gasped in shock. Suddenly, he could feel both ships as extensions of his own body. Energy flowed between the vessels in complex patterns, amplifying their capabilities far beyond what either could achieve alone. Through Zephyr's ancient experience, he gained understanding of combat techniques developed over millennia. In return, the Covenant Guardian gained access to human intuition and adaptability. "Incredible," Zephyr whispered. "Our combined power output has increased by over 300%. Jake flexed his enhanced awareness, feeling weapons and engines that responded with impossible speed and precision. The linked ships moved in perfect harmony, covering each other's attacks and sharing defensive capabilities. "Let's end this," Jake said grimly. The two Guardian ships dove toward the heart of the Void collective fleet. Enemy vessels immediately converged on them, recognizing the threat they represented. Space erupted in brilliant explosions as the linked vessels carved a path through the enemy formation. Jake had never felt anything like the power flowing through the neural bridge. The Defiant Spirit's weapons fired with devastating accuracy, each shot guided by Zephyr's centuries of combat experience and Jake's mechanical intuition for finding weak points in enemy designs. They destroyed ship after ship, their combined shields deflecting incoming fire that would have overwhelmed either vessel alone. But the closer they got to the command ship, the heavier the resistance became. "Warning!" The Defiant Spirit's consciousness spoke directly into Jake's mind. "Hull integrity at 60% and dropping. Multiple system failures detected." "Hold together," Jake urged the ship. "We're almost there." The massive Void command ship loomed before them, its bulk blotting out the stars. Weapon batteries across its hull opened fire simultaneously, creating a wall of energy that seemed impossible to penetrate. But Jake wasn't trying to go through it. Instead, he guided the linked ships in a complex spiral pattern, using their combined speed and maneuverability to slip between the overlapping fields of fire. It was like threading a needle while riding a hurricane, but his bond with both ships made movements possible that no single pilot could have achieved. "There!" Zephyr called out. "The primary neural node is located in the ship's core, but the armor is too thick for conventional weapons." Jake studied the massive vessel through his enhanced senses, seeing patterns of energy and structure invisible to normal sight. Then he spotted what he was looking for, a weak point where the ship's own power conduits came close to the hull. "I see it. If we can overload their power grid, it should cascade through the entire neural network. The energy required would drain both our ships completely. We would be defenseless afterward." Jake looked at the status displays showing Kepler Station's evacuation progress. 85% complete, but the remaining ships were still struggling with engine problems. "Then we better make this count." Jake and Zephyr guided their linked ships toward the target point on the command ship's hull. Enemy fire intensified, and Jake felt systems failing throughout both vessels. Shields flickered and died. Hull plates buckled under the assault, and warning signals screamed through their shared consciousness. But they held on, pouring every last erg of power into their weapons. The combined energy beams lanced out, striking the weak point on the command ship's hull with surgical precision. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the massive vessel began to convulse as its power grid overloaded. Explosions rippled across its hull as critical systems failed. The neural node at its heart went dark, severing the psychic links that controlled the entire Void fleet. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Throughout the enemy formation, ships began drifting aimlessly as their coordinated intelligence collapsed. Some collided with each other, while others simply shut down completely. "It worked," Jake breathed, watching the chaos spread through the Void fleet. Without their hive-mind coordination, the enemy ships were just individual units with no purpose or direction. "Guardian Jake," came a transmission from Kepler Station. "The last evacuation ship just cleared the system. All civilians are safe." Jake felt a surge of satisfaction and relief flow through the neural link with both ships. They had done it. Against impossible odds, they had saved thousands of lives. But their victory had come at a cost. Both Guardian ships were critically damaged, their power reserves completely drained. They drifted in space, unable to maneuver or defend themselves. "So what happens now?" Jake asked Zephyr. "Now we wait for rescue," the ancient Guardian replied. "The Covenant will send ships to retrieve us once they detect our emergency beacons. You have performed admirably, Guardian Jake. The ship chose well when it selected you." Jake leaned back in his command chair, feeling the defiant spirit's contentment flowing through their bond. The ship was damaged but proud, satisfied with their shared victory. "I never thought I'd say this about leaving my old life behind," Jake said, "but I think I'm going to like being a guardian." Through the neural link, he felt Zephyr's approval and the defiant spirit's warm agreement. As they waited for rescue, Jake began to understand that he had found something he never knew he was looking for: a purpose greater than himself and a partnership that would last the rest of his life. The quiet mechanic from Kepler Station was gone. In his place stood Guardian Jake 1 Prime, protector of the innocent and defender against the darkness between the stars.